Reginald F. Lewis was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1942. He was raised by a tight-knit family that nurtured a sound education, unyielding pride, and a strong work ethic.
My grandfather said, know your job and you'll never be in a breadline.
By the 1950s, racial tensions were deepening in Baltimore. It was the site of one of the nation's first sit-ins. Schools were being desegregated, and white flight was peaking.
So when we moved here, all the white people, because it was a whole white block, moved out. So right from the beginning, we had obstacles at very young age that we were aware of, but Mom and Dad didn't bring it home. They just told us that we had to be twice as good and we had to work.
My father was very driven from a very young age. When he was 9, he decided that he wanted to become the richest black man in America.
He had a newspaper route in this neighborhood where he delivered Afro-Americans that Mom took over for him one summer when she sent him to camp.
He went to summer camp, and for 2 weeks, I served and collected the money. And the first thing he said when he walked through the door, "Where's my money?" I said, "I did the work, I earned the money." And he said, "Mom, I'm gonna get a lawyer and sue you." So Butch said, "Give him his money." And he said, "Thank you." He didn't give me a tip and just left.
At Dunbar High School in Baltimore, Reginald Lewis was a 3-sport all-star athlete. He played football as a quarterback, basketball as a guard, and baseball as a shortstop. Between schoolwork, year-round sports, and part-time jobs, Lewis had little time left for play. As a teenager, he was already tough-minded and determined to succeed.
So he went to Virginia State on a partial football scholarship, and then he injured his right shoulder. And what a tragic injury for a right-handed quarterback, a shortstop, and a basketball player who shot with his right hand.
At Virginia State, he made that switch, and by the time he was a senior, was really focused on business and school and advancing his studies, which is why when he saw the ad for the Harvard Law School summer program, that first year that they launched it, he was already able to identify and say, "Oh yes, I want that."
A funny thing happened during that summer. By the end of the program, I really didn't care if I got in or not. I'd done my best and I knew I could compete.
My father, after the 8 weeks, went back to Baltimore, but then just like a week or 2 later, got a call and was in, and was told that he is the only person to get into Harvard Law School without formally applying. Graduating from Harvard Law School, Dad went to the best kind of job that you could have, a blue-chip Wall Street law firm. The one he went to was called Paul Weiss, Wharton, Rifkin, and Garrison.
The Paul Weiss experience was a very good one for me. My skills developed and matured enormously. But at the risk of offending many friends there, it was not an especially happy time for me. And I never really felt at home or able to relax.
So in 1970, my father left Paul Weiss and started a law firm, the first African-American law firm on Wall Street, with some other lawyers. But he only did that for a couple of years, and then he moved on to have his own practice.
During those early years, while Lewis sharpened his legendary negotiation skills, he met the woman who would become his wife.
I met Reginald Lewis on a blind date. I was the one who proposed. We got married 6 months after we met. Yes, wedding in the Philippines. Early in the morning, it was a Holy Mass at around 7 o'clock, so waking up at 4. My wedding gown was hand-embroidered. We were in a small chapel. I was almost walking on clouds. It's like a dream because I never intended to get married. The vision was that he'll be taking care of the big expenses, mortgage, children's education. I will take care of household. So those first years were tough. But, I had faith. I had faith in him.
In those lean years, as Lewis's law practice and reputation began to grow, he purposefully set aside time to use his legal expertise in support of civil rights.
I first met Reginald in the early 1970s. Reginald F. Lewis was the corporate attorney for the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. In the early 1970s, there was a backlash to school desegregation, a violent backlash, where white paramilitary, white supremacist groups physically attacked us at the United Church of Christ Church in Wilmington. And as a result of that attack, a riot happened. 10 of us were arrested in 1972, and we became known as the Wilmington 10 as a result of our unjust arrests. And so they issued a warrant for my arrest, and I was in New York at the time. And the thing that I admired about Reginald Lewis, he was a take charge kind of a guy. On the plane, we discussed when the plane landed, who was going to go off the plane first and who was going to go off the plane last. And Reggie says, "Look, I'm your lawyer, follow me." The sheriff reached for me even while I was stepping down the steps. Reggie grabs the sheriff's arm and said, "Wait a minute, who are you?" And the sheriff said, "Well, I'm the high sheriff, who are you?" And Reggie said, "I'm Reginald F. Lewis, I represent Reverend Shavers. I need to see your identification." That's the kind of lawyer that Reginald Lewis was. That's the kind of, I would say even activist he was. Yes, he was a Wall Street, highly trained corporate lawyer, but he was a strong freedom fighter for civil rights.
But Lewis had another dream. He was an intense, driven risk-taker who wanted the power and the money from the world of high finance. And he wanted to be the first African-American to get it.
I remember that Reg decided that he was going to put more time into venture capital, and he wanted to form a company that he decided to call TLC Group, which he never would admit, but we think it was for the Lewis companies. That's what TLC stands for.
He would always talk, at night when the children are asleep, about the business, about what's happening. I think it's his way of decompressing. I always consider it like there's a ball of string in his head. And just by talking about it slowly, it's coming out and it clarifies his mind.
If you have a core set of values, like family, like hard work,